Well, we are at noon, so I think we will go ahead and just start right through some of the housekeeping things. I just want to make sure that everybody opens up their participant panel as well as their chat panel. We're doing this in a meeting style versus a webinar style. I know it doesn't probably make any difference to you, but to us, there are a few things that are different. So when you have a question, what we're going to want you to be doing is either clicking on the raise hand button. There's a blue raise hand button in the participant panel, and then we will try to look for that, and we will call on you to ask your question out loud. So when you see that you've raised your hand, we're going to want you to unmute yourself. So there's either a microphone or a little telephone icon next to your names in the participant panel, and if it's got a red slash through it, you're muted. By default, everybody is muted. So if you're going to raise your hand, unmute yourself, wait for us to call on you, and then you can ask your question out loud. And then when you're done with your question, please put yourself back on mute so that we don't get any background noise, like if you have to step away. And if you don't feel comfortable raising your hand, you can certainly go down to the chat area and type your questions in there. It's a little bit difficult if we get a ton of questions coming in through the chat to make sure that we've addressed all of them. And one thing I want to make sure we emphasize is when you're typing something in as a question, be very clear about what you're asking. In our webinar last week, we had like 400 people on there, and they would say, "Can you show that to me again?" And by the time I got to the point where I read their comment, I didn't know what they were asking. I was like, "Show what again?" So make sure you're saying, "Can you show me how to do X, Y, Z?" Be very specific in your questions. And if you're having any problems hearing the audio, what we would suggest is instead of listening through your computer, that you call in. And if you scroll up to the top of the chat, at the very beginning of the chat, I put in the phone number with our meeting ID, so you can call in if that's what you need to do. And then finally, we are recording this webinar, so if for any reason you have to step away because a client is there or just you have to leave for any reason, we will be creating a recording of this, and we will email you a link to it, usually within about 24 hours of the actual meeting. And then just to remind you, this is a 3-part series. So we're going to have 2 sessions, one session this week, one next week, where we go through a lot of how-to stuff. We will be taking questions throughout that period of time. And then the 3rd session is pretty much going to be catch all, ask all your questions, right, Stephen? Is that what we're kind of imagining?
Absolutely.
Yep. So that'll be where you can, if you didn't get your questions answered or you've gone and tried some of this stuff and now you have more questions, that's going to be your time to really put those to Stephen. And with that, Stephen Harrington from Cross Insurance out of Washington is our presenter today. Thank you so much, Stephen, for joining us. And I'm going to turn it over to you.
Awesome. I just want to remind everybody that the Hawksoft user group is an organization of users of Hawksoft. So anytime you see one of these presentations, we are real life Hawksoft users. We are not paid models sitting here looking good, just pretending like we know how to use the system. We volunteer our time to do this. So, you know, we do the best we can. It's not always seamless, but we try to make it look that way. And if there is questions along the way, feel free to raise your hand like Jennifer said. So this again is not best practices. Some of this is what I personally do in the agency I manage, but it can relate to your agency. And we're going to have some conversations about different ways you can look at the data for your specific agency. So with that in mind, we shall move forward. You have already heard from Jennifer Thompson, who's our webinar and special project manager for HUG. And then we also have Amelia joining us today, who works from home in Colorado.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for doing that. I totally forgot those slides.
Well, I found it in another presentation I did, and I was like, well, I'll just copy that one over here. Look.
Awesome. Good job.
I am the Chief Operations Officer at Cross Insurance Agency. I oversee the daily operations of our agency with a staff of about 20, between 20 and 23 members. I have over 20 years of management experience, and I've been using Hawksoft since 2008. Back in 2008, when my agency got Hawksoft, Paul Hawkins actually was the one that came into our office to teach us how to use the system. So that was kind of nice having the founder come out and teach us how to do it. And then I also founded a data consulting agency, divaofinsurance.com. What we're going to be talking about today is the HawkSoft data cleanup, the titillating topic that everybody is excited to learn about. This is going to be a step-by-step guide to maintaining and understanding the information within your database to help aid in increased productivity, streamline operations, and clean, concise data. Basically, all it means is we're going to make it pretty so you know what to do with it. This is one of my favorite quotes when it comes to data cleanup or just thinking about processes in general. It isn't what we know that kills us. It's everything that we know ain't so. It isn't what we know that kills us. It's everything that we know that ain't so. So the bad stuff in your database leads you to believe that there could be something different. If premiums are wrong, if somebody adds an extra couple zeros after a premium amount they've manually entered, it's going to inflate what you think the size of your book is. Then when it gets corrected, it's going to drop back down. You're going to be like, what happened to that $20,000 in premium? Well, it was never really there. We just had an error. So it's not what we know. It isn't what we know that kills us. It's everything that we know that ain't so. We are going to cover a lot of information in the next 2 sessions with the follow-up on the 3rd session. So this is just kind of an overview. We're going to go through it. I'm going to take some time to explain to you what the different sections we're talking about are, and then how to start cleaning up the data. Today is going to be a lot of basics and setting a foundation, giving you a week to start working on things before we get into the more complex areas, or the areas that are going to be a little bit more advanced next week. So we're going to talk about user permissions, why is data cleanup necessary, client info versus general policy info, using agency intelligence report, how to save a report, and then cleanup. Also got everybody set up, cleanup. So then we're advanced reports and more cleanup. So it's a lot of stuff we're trying to pack into this little bit of webinar. This was originally an 8-hour course that we had taught over across the nation a couple years ago, and we've tried to consolidate it to give you the best information that you need to be successful in a short period of time. So with that, let's see where we are. Why is data cleanup necessary? 1, so you know how much premium you have for every carrier. If you have Progressive listed in your system 9 different times, do you really know how much premium you have with Progressive? Or do you have to add Progressive up 9 different times every time you look at the report? So premium by carrier. If you have the same client that has multiple client files, maybe the auto came in one, then the home came in another, you're not going to know that we have their home and auto. So cross-sell opportunities could be lost. Efficient communication. If you're using third-party vendors, I know that HawkSoft's done a great job in integrating with some of our marketing partners and other people out there. And if the data's not there, we can't communicate. People's biggest complaint is that ABC marketing system didn't work. Well, it most likely wasn't that the system didn't work, it was the data wasn't clean to help the system work. So that's one of the things we're going to be looking at. Stellar servicing. If we know what the client has, if the limits are accurate, if their contact information is up to date, we look like a rock star to the client. When we're spouting off their information, it looks like we are their best friend and they are our only client. So stellar servicing is another reason for clean data. And then to assess and review workloads. If somebody leaves or retires, what are we going to do with their book of business? Do we just let it sit there? Do we reassign it? If somebody's out for a week unexpectedly, do we know what's in their workflow? If somebody's like, I'm so busy, why do I have to do all the work? Can we see through activity reports what they're doing? Or maybe they just can't handle the same amount that everybody else is handling. So assessing and reviewing workloads. Best practices for data maintenance. I said we were not going to discuss best practices, but it was a lie. I'm going to discuss it for just a second. First of all, you need to define your strategy. That's the most important part before you start cleaning up anything in your agency. What data is important to your agency? Where are you really strong? Like, where do you shine? Are you always good at putting in producer or CSR? Are you always good at making sure your policy company setup is flawless? Focus on that first. That's going to be the easiest thing to do because you're already rocking it. What can you do better? Pick a couple of things, and that's what you're going to start with. It can be very overwhelming to go in and start looking at 20 different fields in your database to see that you have all kinds of wonky things. Pick one thing, work on it, get it clean, then move on to the next. Also, assign a data steward. This was something that came out of a couple of our roadshows in a national conference. We coined the term data steward. Assign somebody in the office. If you are not the best person to maintain the data, let somebody else do it. Find somebody that's detail-oriented, somebody that understands Hawksoft, and somebody that's willing to ask questions. Somebody that'll raise their hand if they don't understand. Assign a data steward. It could be you. It could be the receptionist. I mean, it ranges from every agency I've ever worked with as to who the data steward is. Then training and follow-up. This is our favorite, right? Train, so we can't be frustrated anymore. Set an expectation, follow up regularly, and coach the staff. Let them know what the expectation is, set the expectation, and then follow through regularly at the beginning to make sure that is happening. That is you don't want to have to go in every week or every month and update the same information over and over and over and over. It's kind of like a mouse on a wheel. It just keeps going. But if you can teach the mouse to get to the end of the maze to get the cheese, you're golden. You're going to have to stop looking at those fields after a while because the staff's going to be trained in what to do. Repetition is the key. So train and follow up. And then monthly maintenance. Use your memorized reports. Look for dead versus active, data patches, search and replace. Whatever is important to your agency, define those 4 or 5 things, and that's what you look for every month. Just run the reports, look at it. It's going to become second nature. So monthly maintenance is also key. You could do weekly maintenance if you're that adventurous that most people like to block a couple of hours and do it once a month, or have somebody else do it once a month. The topic of debate, user permissions in Hawksoft. give me access. I want it all. This can open a whole can of worms depending on your agency's practices. There is different levels of access given in Hawksoft by individual user. You can have them access everything. You can have them access almost nothing. You can have them be able to run reports and save them. You can have them run reports but not be able to save them. You can have them export information or not export information. Whatever it is you're going to have them do or look at, you need to make sure they have access, but they don't necessarily need more access than what you want to have or less access. So I'm going to take a quick second and switch my screen here. And this is the Hug Data Cleanup webinar. What? This is our magical new Hug dummy database that we got the pleasure of creating specifically for this class and then moving forward. So if we go to our cog or our wheel and we go to user list, it'll pull up a list of everybody in the agency. Larry Gary is one of my favorites. So is Maya Test. Am I a test? I just come up with funny names and I giggle to myself late at night when I'm working on these things. So if we open Larry Gary, we can go to user permissions and it's going to tell us what Larry can do. And this is going to be really hard to see on my screen, I'm guessing, but you can do this in your database as well. So do you want them to have access to, if we're going just to reporting, do you want them to be able to look at receipt reports? Is that important? Is it not? Depends on your agency. Do you want them to have access to advanced reports? Do you want to have them access agency intelligence, sales and retention? Can they create new reports? Can they run memorized reports? Can they batch logs? Can they look at activity reports? So you can set permissions for, if you want them to only be able to do one type of reporting, you can set that for them. The thing to keep in mind is Hawksoft does not limit it to only their information or their clients assigned to them. Any report that anybody has access to is for the entire agency. I believe it can be limited by office location, but not by user. So that's really important to keep in mind. You can also allow them to print or not print, depending on the preferences of your agency. So that's the important part right there, is come up with a best practice for your office based on your policies and procedures and who needs access to what. At my agency, everybody has access to everything because I believe in being fully transparent. When we train using these reports, and we use them every other week in our staff meetings. So everybody knows how to access them, and they can't tell me they didn't know because they have full access to that information. If they didn't know, it's because they didn't look at the report. So give me.
Hey, Stephen.
Yes.
We had somebody who just asked, could you share again what maintenance reports you would recommend, monthly maintenance reports you would recommend?
We will be reviewing that further along, where we'll have an actual
great.
list of things once we go over some of the different reports and report types. So yes, there will be a list at the end of the rainbow, I promise. So give me user permissions. Makes me think of the give me something after midnight. Was that ABBA? Give me. Here's some examples of unclean data. When we're looking here, we can see Mike Richmond, it's all lowercase. Retention is in lowercase. We have app submitted versus application sub. And this is what a lot of our databases look like. Type, prospect, current client versus agent. Birthdays are in there, all kinds of wacky and weird. Socials are in there with periods or no dashes. Genders are spelled out in some cases. This is the kind of stuff that we're going to look at, is, how do we get it all uniform? There's no right or wrong answer as long as it's the same through your database for every single user. So you can decide how you want the information to appear for your agency. I'm going to show you how I do it in mine, but my way is not the best way for everyone. This is where we get a little confused. Client info versus general policy info. Client info versus general policy info. This is two different types of reporting and two different sets of information. They appear the same at first, but is one stronger than the other? I don't know. Client info controls the top part and all the underlying policies. Policy info only controls the individual policies. So client info is going to be things like named insured, business name, mailing address, physical address for state and zip, primary phone number, primary email, client type, customer type, client status, client office, client source, client producer, and client CSR. That's all the information at the top of your screen when you are using HawkSoft. So if we open Christopher wherever, Christopher, named insured, second named insured, address, client type, client status, producer, CSR, client office, numbers, and anything on the client tab, the client miscellaneous info, and the personal information is all going to come from the client info level. The general policy information, however, is going to be agent 1, 2, or 3, however you're assigning those in your agency, the specific company for that policy, what program the policy is, the application type, the line of business, premium, status for the policy, expiration dates, policy titles, what type of policy it is. If the policy is in a different state, it'll let us know, and the policy form. So again, that's going to be all of this lower information. It's policy specific. You can have an agent 1 on the umbrella that's completely different than the agent 1 on the boat, that's completely different than the agent 1 on the auto, and they can all be with different carriers. We don't know. Well, we don't know, but we know that this is the general policy information, or GPI. So when we're doing our data cleanup, we do it in two parts. We clean up the client information, which is just the top part above all the policies. Then we do the general policy information, which is broken down by individual policy. So I'm hoping everybody's clear thus far. There was a lot of questions on that when we were presenting in the past. Whoa, agency intelligence is the eyes of the agency. This is where we're going to start with our basic cleanup. This is only going to be searching our active clients. So if a client is dead or a policy is dead, it will not show in the information we're going to start cleaning with. So this is a very basic level of cleanup. The agency intelligence report gives us a lot of general information. It's the key performance indicators of the agency. It can be based on the agency's book of business, the number of customers or policies, and it's displayed in tables as well as in graphs. You can group by many different fields. You can pick different date ranges. You can compare different things. You can filter it down. I mean, there's 100 different things you can do with this magical thing, and that's what we're going to start reviewing here in a couple of minutes. You can also print these reports or email these reports to other people to review as well. Saving reports. This is a fun one, guys. I'm going to review saving reports before we even start anything. The reason I want to review this ahead of time is as you're going through, you can save reports to come back to work on in the future and still move along through the next steps if you're really that fast and efficient. Otherwise, it's just going to help you learn how to save a report if you don't already know how. So to save a report, the first thing we need to do is run a report. So we can go to advanced reports. Oh, no, I'm sorry, we're doing agency intelligence. I get so excited about advanced reports. Advanced reports. So in advanced reports, we can see that we have, this is customers grouped by producer. In this particular case, I have 6 customers that have no producer. In my agency, that's a big no-no. We assign a producer to every policy. So what I'm going to do is I can click on the number 6. If the finger points, it'll open a report. If the finger doesn't point, you can't do anything with it. Finger point, yes. Arrow, no. So we double click this, it's going to open a new report. And here's my report of all of my customers that don't have a producer assigned. If I'm going to go back and work on this in the future, I can simply click save. I can name this something fun like clients with no producer. And then I tend to put the date in. You want to make sure it's a DBF file. That just means it's a database file for HawkSoft, and you're going to click save. That's how simple it is to save a report. The reason why I like saved reports is because we can go back and work the report. It's a static image of what was happening at that time, but it'll still open the clients in HawkSoft. So to open that report back up, and it just pulls up my saved reports here, client with no producer, and there's the report again. I can now click on any of these and fix the information. And I can go through the, yes.
We just had a quick question. Someone said, is it possible to have the system automatically email specific reports at specific intervals at this point?
It is not. It is not an option at this point. HawkSoft is working on some advanced reporting and some additional reporting features. However, those have not been released yet, and I'm not privy to exactly what that will entail either. But if you have a great idea like that, use the message board and submit that because they do read that. So again, from my saved report, I have my client open, and I can go through each person on this report by simply clicking the next button. I don't have to go to back to the report every time. It's just going to go through whoever's on that report.
And Stephen, Audrey wanted to know, can you explain the value of assigning a producer to each policy?
Yes. In our agency, the producer is the person that services the account, because it could be written, each policy could be written by a different person, or people come and go. So we leave agent one at the policy level, whoever originally wrote the policy. We have the producer as the person that's going to service the account. Other agencies I work with use producer for whoever originally wrote the account and is getting commission paid on the account, and the CSR field for whoever's servicing the account. So again, Hogsoft lets you do whatever you want to do. You just have to decide what works best for your agency. And for us, we found it was just easier. We wanted to know that if we had an employee that worked for us for 4 months and then left, we could go back and pull all the policies they wrote if they left because of a performance issue to make sure they were all okay. Or that we could target specific things by agent one and who wrote it. So there is no right or wrong answer, but producer could be either who writes the account or wrote the account, or it could be who services the account.
Great. And then Audrey wanted to know if you could show again where you had opened up the saved report, where you retrieved the saved report.
Of course, we can go to reports and we can click on any of the reports. It doesn't matter, but in this case, I had agency intelligence open, so I'll open it back up again. Maybe if it wants to move. Ooh, that's really big, isn't it? No, no. It's being ornery. My drag and drop is broken. There it is. We can just, on anything you open, you can click the open box right here that just says open, and it's going to go to your saved report. So you just pick the one that you want. So that works.
Somebody asked if you can email those, and like, can a saved report be emailed to another user? And it kind of looks like it can't be emailed because you're just opening it. Yeah, so unfortunately the report cannot be emailed because it is in a very specific format for Hawksoft. The value of saving the report inside Hawksoft is that somebody can go to that report and literally click and it opens the client right up. You do have the option to save the report as an Excel document, at which point you could email that to somebody, but then they're going to have to type in the person's name or policy number every time to get that to pull up in Hawksoft. Right, so it's not interactive then, so they would have to. Yeah, so it's not interactive. So if you save it as Excel and email it, it's not interactive. If you save it as a saved report, it is interactive. Okay, and then Christy said, once you do have the report open, can you show again how you move to the next customers from the report? Absolutely. So if we open the report, we click on the client's name. For the first one, it's just going to open up in the CRM, and we just click the next button. And it just goes right down through the report to all of those 6 people. Like, I can't click next anymore because there's only 6 on the list. Right. So up, 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 and down, 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 down. It's only looking at the information from the report. Great. And then I'm going to circle back to what you were talking about. We had a few more questions about the producer, CSR, Agent 1. Somebody just kind of want to confirm saying, so you use producer and CSR for the same thing? So that's a very good question.
So producer we use for whoever services the account. Some of our accounts are very simple accounts. It's monoline or um, basic auto. And then we use the CSR field for our actual CSR team that can help service those accounts. So we do have 4 CSRs on our staff to go along with our 9 account managers. The CSRs only service the most basic level of client, but they still have an account manager assigned so that if the CSR can't handle it, they know exactly where to go. It goes to the producer on the account. And that was just how our agency found it worked best for using those fields.
Okay, and Andrew asked, kind of coming back to that same thing where you described some scenarios, he said, can you repeat in your scenario as to who gets paid commission if it's an agency owner that isn't servicing an account?
Yes. We actually do all of our commission reporting by agent, which is at the policy level. So the person that wrote the policy is the one that gets paid the commission. So if I'm out of the office and Sharon has to come and write a policy for me, Sharon's still going to get paid the commission because she did the work, but I'm going to continue to service the client as a whole. So Sharon will put her initials as agent 1, and we run our commission reports based off of agent 1 field. So producer services the account overall. CSR is assigned if it's monoline or something simple to be a backup. And the agent field we use for whoever wrote the policy and will be paid commission. Does that?
Great. We have a couple other questions.
Okay.
I think that does answer the question. And we can come back to it if I see Andrew. I can actually see Andrew. So I don't know if we're answering your question, Andrew, or not, but I could see you on video. You know, we did have a question that says, when you correct and assign or change the producer, does it not update until file maintenance is complete? I actually think it does update, but not always. Is that the right answer? Like sometimes it does?
Always. Yes, it kind of does. So if I went in and updated the producer on this account, and it's just a one-off, the system is going to recognize it right away, but it's not going to recognize it in the reports I'm running until the freshen indexes happen. So if you're doing it in a batch, what's really fun is you can then click on each client and click refresh, and it'll show the correct producer, but it still will not show correctly on your reports until you freshen your indexes.
And probably just a good rule of thumb throughout this process, don't you think, Stephen, is like if you're correcting data, before you go to rerun your reports, just automatically rerun your freshen indexes, because that way you can make sure, between day in, day out, as you're changing things, that you're getting the most up-to-date information on the report itself.
Absolutely.
Mary had asked, can you attach documents to a saved report? I feel like that would not be possible because you're just saving the report itself. It's not like a file that you could email to anybody, therefore you couldn't link any kind of reports or documents with it.
You can't attach anything to those reports that you're saving.
And Lisa wanted to know, what are some of your most common reports that you save in HawkSoft? So what do you modify and change and then save them as?
Normally, if there's misinformation, like we do a weekly sales report, and if there's no agent listed or there's no source listed, I save that list and I just say, hey guys, if you want commission, you better go in and make sure source and agent are entered. Then they can go into the pre-ran report to see if it was their client. I tend to try not to babysit because they've all had enough training to know that they're supposed to enter it. So I do run the production report, but I only save the ones that don't have the information that I require. It could be premium, it could be source, or it could be the agent's initials.
Great.
And then during
so I feel like
we talk about that.
Yeah, and I think we're getting a lot of questions coming in right now. I think we're kind of caught up for the moment. So what I
Okay,
think we're going to do is allow you to kind of go on with your presentation, Stephen.
perfect.
And I'm going to try to, what I want to kind of do is, I'm not going to try to interrupt in between all your questions. I think we'll kind of let you just pause at
Okay.
the end of a little section and then try to answer all the questions then, if that works for everybody, just so we maintain the flow.
Yes, that's wonderful.
Okay, great. I'm going to let you go.
Okay.
Go.
Yay, we're gonna go. We're gonna go. So what we're gonna do first is clean up the CSR. Then we're gonna do the producer. These are two of the most simple, basic reports we can do using agency intelligence. So in Hawksoft, we go back to our favorite report we're going to talk about all day today, agency intelligence. Now, again, agency intelligence is only looking at active policy information, not anything that's old and dead and archived or anything else. So here, what we're looking for is client producer. I'm sorry, we're looking at client CSR. So I can group by at the top under customers. I can group by CSR. And what I'm doing, guys, is I'm actually following the order that these pages are in the in your cleanup guide. I actually created this PowerPoint to go along with the guide that you were all sent and that's available on the HUG website. So to me, it's a little out of order, but it's in the exact order that you can find the pages in your guide. So right now we're on page 6 of the cleanup guide. So if I go in and group by CSR, it then just shows me how many each person has. I can see that in this case, there's 42 customers that do not have a CSR assigned. If that's an issue for my agency, I can run that report and fix it. I can see that the HUG admin has 2 customers that they're the CSR for. The HUG admin is the magical, mystical, silent partner that does nothing at the agency. So that would be a big no-no in this case. So I can simply click the number 2. A new report opens, and I can go in either one at a time and change the producer with my action internal, change client, and it looks like the CSR is going to be, am I a test? And I click finish and okay, and finish and done and okay. And then I can go down to the next one using the next button and do the same thing. And that's the way the guide is showing you how to do it. It is to go in individually by policy and change that information. Now, that can get a little tedious. So with this one, and as you see here, I changed it, but it doesn't show any change here. So what we have to do is we have to go and we get to go to our little tools and file maintenance, which is now popping up on a different screen. Freshen the indexes. And this, we're going to let this run for just a second. If anybody's wondering why there's 1,868 client files in the HUG database, it's because I messed them up 4 times in a row and had to archive them all. And the 5th time was finally the right way for it to happen. So I had some repetitive stress injuries from creating this database for y'all. This tells me there's no errors, blah, blah, blah. We go back to our report and we can actually click refresh right here because we've freshened our indexes. And look, HUG is gone. It's like magic. HUG is gone. No longer is CSR. If we have a large batch of information that we need to replace, we could open this report. And if I know that everything Richard Anchovy. If I know that A through L is one CSR and M through Z is another, I can select the files I want, click New Report from Selected Entries. And then I can go to File, Data Replace, and this gets scary, so call Hawksoft if you need help. Don't do this without running a backup first, or if you don't know what you're doing, call for help. I've messed up many a database that I've had to manually go and fix because I didn't follow my own advice. Hence the reason why 4 times I had to fix the Hug database. So clients, we click on Client under Data Replace, and we can select the correct CSR. We click OK. Are you sure you want to do this? It's giving us a warning because it's dangerous. Yes, I want to do it. And it's now going to go in, and it gave me a warning to run file index. It's now going to go in, and all of these now will have a CSR assigned once I freshen the indexes. So the first thing, or the next thing I can do is I can click over here, and I can go to M through Y. And I can do the same thing. New report from selected entries, file data replace, click on the client, and pick the correct CSR. Again, it gives me my warning. Are you sure you want to do this? Yep, I do. Alrighty. Yippee skippy. So at this point, if I click on this client, it's going to show the CSR is there. But if I go back to my report, if I go back to the agency intelligence report, it's still going to show I have 42 customers that don't have a CSR. So again, now we have to, anybody? I feel like Ferris Bueller. Anybody? Anybody? Freshen our indexes. So click the little toolbar, file maintenance, and freshen indexes. Yes, I want to do it. Woohoo. For those of you that are parallels or whatever it is now these days, Cotter Parallels, one of the hosted servers, these reports run a lot faster. The file maintenance runs a lot faster for you if you're hosted in-house on your own server and you have a large database. The database at our agency is almost 20 years old. So we have, I think, almost 1 million files in there. It takes it about 10, 15 minutes to freshen the indexes every time. So I can now freshen my indexes. I go back in, I click refresh, and ta-da, somehow I was a rebel and I missed one client. I click on that one. It was because it didn't have a last name, and I was sorting by alphabet by last name. So the Krispy Creamery needs a CSR assigned. This one I'm just going to go in and do because it's easier to do it as a one-off than to go through all those other steps. Click finish. It's going to give me errors because there's no main contact in there. Tom, and finish. So we now have a CSR assigned to this one-off policy as well. So is everybody with me so far on the magical journey of cleaning up CSR from your agency intelligence report? Do we have questions at this point before we move to the next one?
We do have a couple questions.
Okay.
Dawn wanted to know, let's see if it was, yep, actually somebody else answered her question, but Kristen, I think it's worth saying out loud because Kristen wants to know, do you have to have everyone out to freshen your indexes?
Hawksoft says yes. I say, you can be daring. What'll happen sometimes if you have an especially large database is if you freshen the indexes while people are in it, it can erase all of their suspenses. And then they go, wait, I don't have any workflow. What happened to all my suspenses? So then you have to freshen the indexes again a second time, and they all reappear. That's the worst thing I've ever seen happen from freshening indexes while somebody's in the system. So Hawksoft says yes. I say depends on how daring you are.
Sarah wanted to know, I think she was referring to, like, once you had the report up, you selected a group of people and you right-clicked. And then she wanted to know, after you right-click to select the clients for the batch, what is the next selection you should choose?
So I have this, and then I'm selecting clients, and I right-click, new report from selected entries.
Which essentially just moves everything, that whole group, to its own tab.
So,
and then from there, you're doing the mass update.
Yes, absolutely. So right here it says this is a total of 18 of the 35 records from that report. Then if I go back to this report, it's still really light gray as to where it ended. So I can then click on the next one down and select the rest if I wanted to.
And Jolene was saying, do you have to freshen indexes, then refresh after every CSR fix?
According to the HUG Users Group National Committee that put together this workbook, they say, yes, you should refresh indexes after every change to make sure that everything's stuck. I tend to be more of a rebel. If I'm working on CSRs, I'm going to go through and make all my changes to the CSRs, freshen my indexes at the end, and then go back and double check it. So we're teaching this at a very basic level, that if you're having the receptionist do this kind of work, you might want to have her refresh each little section to make sure it got done correctly. If you have somebody that's on top of it and understands the data, they can go several layers or several different reports deep before they freshen the indexes again. So it's just kind of up to how comfortable you are with the information and how familiar you are with fixing the information.
Right, and Christy was saying, so this would be good to reassign if an employee leaves. So these are some of the tools you use when you have an employee leaves. You use this to go through and reassign these to a new employee.
Yes, you can do that. And next week we'll also talk about a way of resuspending all their suspenses and everything too in one fell swoop. But that's in a search and replace feature that's in the advanced reports. So that'll be further out. This is the quick and easy way just to reassign a client, but we can do a lot more than just reassign a client with these reports.
Great, and I just wanted to let everybody know that guide that Stephen's referring to, I'm going to be emailing a link to that guide when I send out the recorded webinar. So you'll get a link to it, but I also posted the link right now in the chat screen. So if you wanted to go pull it up, it's the second to last thing in the chat. Let's see, I'm gonna just post it one more time because I sent it to somebody privately, but now I just sent it to everybody in the chat screen if you wanted to grab that URL so you could have it immediately when we're done with the webinar. But I will send it out with the recorded webinar too, the link to it.
And I believe the link was sent out when you originally registered as well. So some of you might already have that. The next
I think we're kind of caught up, so I'm going to let you go on to the next section.
All right. We're going to keep on trucking. We are going to move on to cleaning up, guess what? Producer. You know why we're doing producer next? Because it's part of the customer level data. So we're going to do the customer level, then we're going to do the policy level. So we're going to producer. Here, I must have done a really good job of training because I only have 6 customers that don't have a producer assigned. I am so proud of my team today. I'm going to just double click that number 6. Remember, finger, you can click it, arrow, you can't. Finger, yes, arrow, no. Click on that number 6, and it's going to open up a whole new report. I can see here that there's CSRs assigned to everything, but there's no producer. Now, I have different people work the commercial book for producers than I have worked the personal lines book. But can I tell necessarily if this is a business, except for these two that have a business name? No. You know what I can do? This is going to blow your mind. I can click on layout. I can then go to add edit, and I can select any of the information I want to add into this magical report. So I could do, and what am I looking for? I'm looking for client customer type. And I want to know if it says personal or commercial. I'm going to click OK and finish, and it's going to freshen my little report, and look at that. I have commercial, commercial, commercial. So again, I just went to layout, added in the fields I wanted added, clicked finish, and it adds those fields in. That was worth the price of admission right there, in my opinion. It took me years to figure that one out. So I could now select the personal ones and new report from selected entry. I can then do my data replace. Clicking on the client, switching my producer to Larry, the commercial agent. I can then go back and select all my personal ones. And I can data replace that as well. By clicking on client and changing the producer again. And then I can run my file maintenance and make sure that those all came out correct. It's a magical adventure we're having with file maintenance. And it's going to take you just a minute to freshen indexes. While that's happening, let's go to this screen here. So a couple of helpful tips while that's freshening is always run a backup before cleanup. Always freshen your indexes when done with the cleanup. Implement procedures to keep your data clean. Set up hotkeys for common tasks. And use data replace with the help of HawkSoft. So backup, freshen, implement, hotkey, replace. 5 quick tips. Data refresh is done, and we are going to go back to our report again and click refresh. And ta-da! Everybody has a producer assigned. Next on our list for the cleanup is going to be client office, not policy office, client office. Client office, we're selecting at the top here. I can see that I have 103 customers in Summit and 82 in Westridge and 16 with no office. Oh, they don't have a home. Double click that number 16, new report opens, and I know in my office who works at what location. So DOI is at Summit, LJC or LJG is at the other location, and this one's at Summit as well. So again, I can go through, select my ones that all go to Summit, new report, and you can do these individually one by one if you want to. If you're not comfortable with data replace, or you can just go to data replace. And again, this is at the client level, so we'll click on client and we'll pick the correct office. Okay, yes, perfect. And we'll do the same for the remaining. Clicking on client once again. And putting in the other office location. Now, next time I freshen my indexes, this will be all beautiful, and those will all be rolled into Summit and Westridge. That is the end of the client level of cleanup for the basic level using the agency intelligence. The next section we're going to talk about is the policy level. This is affected by the individual policies. So if we click on policies.
Hey, Stephen,
yes.
before we move on to that, can I just ask, I had a couple questions that came up. One was, if you are one location office, should you be putting something here in the office?
No, I apologize. If you are a single office user, you most likely don't even have anything showing in the client office, or it's just set to the default for the location. I think you have to, in the setup, be a multi-office user to have more than one option available to you.
Okay, and then this is a good question. Mary wants to know, how do you run a backup? And if you make the mistake of running the data replace, how do you fix it? Like if you do it wrong, you know, that never happens to anybody, right?
Right, so that was a great question. To run a backup, we're gonna go to the little tools up here, the little wrench and hammer or whatever those things are. We're gonna go to backup. Backup will then open in the new window. And you can select, this is for your information backup versus an attachment backup. So backup, you select wherever the location of your backup is stored. That's up to your IT professional, your administrator, your computer people. I don't know where you store that. That's completely up to y'all. Maybe you have a flash drive, maybe you have a secure storage, maybe it's the cloud. I don't know. But you pick that location. You then click start, and it's just going to run right through and run a backup. And the backup's not responding. It must be because our data is so dirty it doesn't know what to do with it. So I'm just going to move that down there. Once it's done, it'll tell us it's done. There it goes. So now it's running the backup. It's compressing. It's going to take it just a minute to run through this. Then to restore, once this happens, you call Hawksoft. You call Hawksoft customer support and you say, I was naughty. I put something bad in my database and I need it restored from the last backup. Can you help? And they say, of course, we'd be happy to do that with you. And you do a support session and they go right through and they help you do it. The only word of caution is if you are not listed as an administrator or controller in the Hawksoft or with Hawksoft, they will not allow you to do it. So if you are the receptionist that ran the backup, you're doing a report, and now you need to fix it, they may have to talk to the agency owner or a manager to give permission to allow the system to be rebuilt from a backup. They want to make sure that people aren't trying to erase things that happen and go back to something prior. So it is very rare to do a restore, but we just say, we use caution and say, hey, run a backup every time before you do cleanup, just in case there's a boo-boo. So here's my backup. I can then go to restore, and I call Hawksoft because I'm not going to get in trouble for picking the wrong file or how to restore.
And if you're doing the restore, is it kind of like if you realize you made a big mistake, and honestly, if you made small mistakes, you might want to fix those individually, because if you have to restore, you might have to tell everyone, I need you out of the system, because from now on, until I get it fixed, we would lose our data that you're entering in the meantime. Is that correct?
Yes. So anything that's been entered since the backup was run will be lost.
Right.
So that's the other pitfall. So I normally get up early and do our data cleanup before anybody's in the system in the morning, or I do it after we close. I mean, that's my best practice, because I want to make sure if I mess it up, I'm not like, hi, who was the last 4 people you talked to? And can you put all the log notes in again?
Right.
They're not going to remember. So that was a very good question. Yes, you want to make sure that you run the backup, but then you want to make sure nothing else is being entered except for what you're doing during the time you're doing that cleanup. All right, we're going to move along to, if I could find the right screen. What am I doing? How data clean? Okay, I'm in the right database at least. I had like 3 different Hawksoft sessions going earlier, and I got myself a little confused. So we're going to go to reports, agency intelligence once again. It's the theme of the day, agency intelligence. And this time we're going to go to policy. This is looking at things at the individual policy level, not at the client, at the policy level. So here, the first thing we can see is application type. Is it personal? Is it commercial? Or is it, I don't know. The one that is my pet peeve is you can have an option for other. And other normally means that they didn't know what to do with it, so they put it in as the wrong policy type. I'm sorry, the wrong application type. So this one that's blank, I can open it. Again, do I know what it is? No, it doesn't say personal or commercial here, but it does say it's a home policy. So I'm going to assume it's correct. I'm just going to open the client, and I'm going to change the type to, we've got an invalid company. We'll talk about that in a while too. Internal change. And we can go to general policy information. And application type is going to be personal. And then whatever line of business it was, we might as well fill it in while we're here. So personal home and okay. Now it's been updated here on the client, but again, it's still not updated here until we freshen our indexes. So because it was a one-off, I just opened the, now it says no policies match because I fixed it. But the system's not updated yet. So that's application type. You can also go in and double check by clicking next to personal the number of policies and make sure that all of them really are personal type policies by looking at the base type or the location of business. Like these all just say auto, boat, home. I know all of those are going to be personal because the autos all had an auto P or auto or rec V over here by line of business. I don't have to worry about it being a commercial auto. Oh, I lied. Look. Auto B, stop the madness. I'm discovering dirty things and I'm getting off track. So here, look what we discovered under the personal application type. There's some business auto there. And look, they all have business names, so I think it's right. All we have to do is file. And we can do these one by one, or we can do file, data replace. And here's where we're going to start using these fun boxes. It's boat, home, commercial, and auto. Because these are strictly auto policies, I'm just going to click on the auto box. I can go down here to application type, switch it to commercial, from personal to commercial, click OK. And it's now going to re-index those 7 files from personal into the commercial bucket. So that's, again, we went in and just to double check everything was personal, that said it was personal, and we found those auto Bs, which was business auto. So you could also find other things that didn't belong as well and do the same thing. Again, we could do the same theory with commercial. Run our commercial report. We can go over by policy type, which they're all enhanced. We can then also do location of business and see if anything jumps out at us. I mean, it's bonds, it's personal umbrellas and commercial, maybe, maybe not. Again, new report from selected entries. We know at least one of them is a commercial umbrella, but we can again click on the report, personal umbrella, oh no, commercial umbrella, personal, Personal. We don't know. Personal. So by going back to the report, I can then say, hey, I know that this one doesn't belong. These ones all do. New report, file, data replace. This is where we're going to use that all other field. We're going to go to application type, personal, line of business. We're going to replace PUMBR with the, oh no, that was world, personal umbrella, sorry. Application type is going to be changed to personal. Okay, done. And the next time I run my freshen indexes, those 6 clients will be moved to the commercial umbrella. I'm sorry, to the personal umbrella from the commercial umbrella. So let's go ahead and freshen our indexes again since we did 10 different things really fast. Yes, I agree. Oh, you can't see the little box running. Sorry, there you go. It's like a little race for time. 1,868. Now we're at 600. Now we're at 700, going on 800, moving on to 9. Once we have 9, we have 1,000. Then we have 1,100. We're moving on 12, 13, 14, and 15. We're going for 1,800, and we're at 17 and 18. We should be almost done. Let's just go look at everything, and boom, we have 1 suspense and no file errors. By opening back up that magical report, remember we had 61 commercial, 150 personal, and 1 regular. Now, if we want to remember this, we can always print this screen as a PDF or print it to our printer just to know that that's what we had before we did anything. So we can print it. We're good to go. I'm going to refresh the report. And bam, we still have 150 personal, but we got 62 commercial. But we know that we took 6 out of 1 and moved it to the other, and took those 6 and moved it to the other. Then we had the 1 that we moved to the other, which still makes it 212 policies. So at the end of the day, we still have what we needed to have. That was application type. The next one, where we would have caught some of these things that I went ahead and fixed anyways, was line of business. Line of business. This is in your policy company setup. You can set the default to be whatever the Accord standard is, or you can put in your own custom titles for each carrier for each policy type. So some people that have a client that have 20 rentals, they go in and add in policy company setup the address as a custom policy title, so that they title each one of those tabs with the address of the property location. I like to know more of how many dwelling fires do I have, how much ag do I have. I'm not so worried about individual locations. So if we're looking here, we are looking for anything that looks strange. So what is other? I don't know. You know how we find out? The finger says we can click on it. We click on it. It's then going to open up. Ooh, it's Moneyman CPA. Look at him go. And then we would open our download or policy documents to find out what the correct type of policy is. But because it was all fake, I will just go in and pick one. And because it was a one-off, we can just do it here. Go into general policy information. And we are going to say it is a commercial, yes, line of business other. That makes no sense, but it should be property. Other policy form. And because this policy company setup is not correct, we can't actually fix it. So see, now we're in a pickle. The pickle is we can't fix it. The secret is under brokers 2, under company, I can go click on policy company setup at the very top. It'll take me directly to the one I already had open. I can then open it and I can add in anything I need to add. I can add line of business. I can use custom policy types. I can do whatever I need to do to fix the problem. So for my cap locks must be on. Finish, close. And then I can go in here and I can say, okay, this is, I don't know why it's still showing under auto.
You know what? I think, Stephen, when you were doing that in the company setup, you did it
Yep.
in the titles instead of the line of business.
Thank you. I'm trying to move too fast. Policy info.
I think you got to go to the bottom one where it says lines of business coverage.
Lines
on the
of
left.
business coverage.
There we go.
Thank you. We did not add it in by default. So we add our LOB for the BAP. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Finish, close. We can then go commercial. We can then pick our BAP. Replace with default coverages. The policy form is done and finish. Now that we talked in a circle around that, that one is now all fixed. So it now has a line of business showing. The other things we could look for is, like we saw before, we had auto, then we had auto P, but we fixed all that in one fell swoop prior when we were moving it around by type. Then there's 45 that have no line of business. So again, we would click on this. It opens our report, and you know what? I don't even know what to do with this one. I am going to save this report as no. Line of business save. No. No line of business. Three, 4, 21. I'm going to save that, and I'm going to let somebody else go in one by one and decide what the proper line of business for each one of these is. Because you know what? It's not worth my time. So again, we can open the saved report. And if I'm the person cleaning it up, I could then, in theory, batch it by application type or by policy type. And then I could start doing either one-offs or little by little. New report from selected. Going in and doing the data replace. Remembering that I have to update whatever it is by the line of business and the policy type. So is it an auto? Is it a boat? Is it a home? Is it commercial, all other? This is where I'm going to fix that at. These all tell me the base type of policy is auto, so I'll be okay just going into auto and adding a line of business. These are all personal auto, auto P, okay. Yes, I want to do it. Yes, I want to freshen my indexes. And again, then I can go on to boat, enhanced, home, etc., adding those in by section. Another fun way to do this is I can go up here to this little funky letter that says summary. I can go to policy type BAS. The title up here matches exactly over here. I can click OK, and it'll tell me right here what kind of policies they are. I can then go from this report and fix those LOBs for auto. I can then go and fix these boats. I can go and fix. All of these are homes. I can go and fix all of these as homes. And then I could go in and look at enhanced and try to get a better handle on whatever it really was. So again, from the report that was already open, that had all of those ornery things in it, the list I'm assigning to somebody else to deal with, I can go to Summary, Policy Type BAS, and just batch them off, or just make sure they all look correct and then do it as a batch. So these are all personal home. We need a location of business, our data replace. In this case, because we're dealing with home, we just click on home. We go to our line of business and we pick whatever it was. These are all homeowners policies, so we're going to pick home. If some were home and some were dwelling fire, you would batch those into 2 separate lists and do half as home, half as dwelling fire, or whatever the breakdown was. In this case, these are all home. Click OK. Blah, blah, blah. Close that out. Now, if we go and freshen our indexes, we can go back to agency intelligence and see what's left here in this policies box. Do we have questions at this point while I'm freshening the magical indexes?
Stephen, we did have one question from Mary. She wanted to know, can you delete your saved reports when you're finished with them?
You sure can. Great question. As soon as I get done with the freshen indexes, I will show you how to do that. There's 2 different ways to do it.
And while that's running, I was just going to comment that I find that a lot of this, if you've ever done a database conversion, the stuff that you're showing right now can be really helpful, because at some point when you're doing your conversion, somebody in your agency sat down with Hawksoft and said, this is the same in my system from Applied as it is to Hawksoft, and they, you know, or AMS 360 or whatever you came from. They had to go through and match things up, and they probably did a pretty good job, but you might find that there are some things that didn't quite match the way you expected, or just because they use a different code for like the homeowners. You know, maybe they had P home instead of home, or maybe they had B auto instead of auto B. I know that in the guide, we kind of recommend that if you were just starting your system from scratch, that you just stick with the default lines of business unless you had to create special ones, you know, for something. Just because Hawksoft always wants to default to the default. You know, it always wants to use the default if you don't pick it. You know, you don't pick your special code. So, the things that Stephen's showing right now is just super useful for doing some cleanup after a database conversion.
So in each one of your, like this is commercial all other, under policy info for this bond for company, all these custom titles are here, but I don't know why we would ever have a snowmobile, classic, trailer, RV, or ATV on a commercial policy with this carrier. Doesn't seem like they offer it. I can unselect this, and it will be determined by the line of business. It's going to default to the Accord form and just code it as whatever the base template should be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, and then somebody was asking about how to delete a report once you're done with it.
The saved reports.
The saved report. You can go to open, and it's going to show you where in the magical database those are stored, because especially for Parallels clients, it's a mystical, magical H drive somewhere that's normally in HOB and agency documents, but that can be a different location for each agency. Once you have it, though, you can just right-click and delete. Right-click.
One of the things that I do with saved reports, when I'm creating saved reports, I always date stamp them at the front. So I do like 2021_02_01, and then the name of the report, so that when I go back and look at reports, the ones that I've saved, I can say, oh, that's an old one, and I can just get rid of them more easily.
Yes. So, you know, I do the date at the back, but either way, it is important to add a date just so you know what it was. Or like my marketing person loves very specific reports. Like he wants super specific information. So when I do that, I put his name. It says Dominic, then whatever the report is, and the date. Then when he's going through all of our saved reports, because we have like 40 of them, he's just looking for his name because he knows that's his report to work. Or if I have one of the CSRs cleaning up something, it's their name, then whatever it is. So they're just looking for their name in the saved report.
Yeah, it certainly helps to kind of develop the naming convention for what you use in your agency, because that way you can easily find it and share it with everybody else. Whereas if you're just naming it something different every single time, it becomes difficult.
Yes, very much so.
And Stephen, just to give you a little heads up, we're at about 10 minutes out from the end time today. So
perfect. We're going to look at one more field, then we will have a quick minute for questions, and then we will meet again next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. This one is pretty simple as well. Policy office. Now this is at the policy level. There's 14 that don't have an office. How I'm going to figure out now, I'm assuming a lot of things here. I'm assuming the policy office should match the client's office or the customer's office. That's my assumption in this database. If the policy office matches the customer office or the client office, I just have to go here by C office. And I can either do a summary by C office and then reopen those reports, or I can highlight and new report from selected entries. Here's where it's tricky. This is commercial, it's personal, it's ag, it's home, it's boat, it's auto. These all need to be moved to Westridge for the policy office. You can do these one by one, or you can go to File, Data Replace, and here's where the tricky part comes in. Because we have every line of business affected, we're going to go to Commercial, and we're going to pick the policy office. We're going to go to Home, and we're going to pick the policy office. Next up is Boat, and we're going to pick the policy office. And if anybody is following along at home, we're then going to click on Auto and switch it to policy office. We didn't click on Client because we're not changing anything at the client level. We're only changing it at the policy level. And here we see ag and home and boat and auto. So we just went through auto, boat, home, and commercial. Change the office to the correct office. We click OK. Yes, I really want to do it. OK. And then we'll do the same for Summit. We'll freshen our indexes, and this report will be beautiful once again. So really what you're looking for, whether you're at the customer level or the policy level, is just opening up any one of these fields, and you're just looking to make sure that it makes sense, that it makes sense to your agency, that it makes sense to whatever. Is there something missing? Click it and fix it. So any of these come right up with this report. What we'll be reviewing next week is the policy title. We're going to get more into policy company setup. We're going to review agent 1, 2, and 3, and we're going to get into the advanced portion of reporting. So today was kind of laying the foundation. We talked about the client level information. We talked about the policy level information. We talked about how to clean up things at the customer level by producer, CSR, and client office. We learned that fun new trick where we could add a field into our report to give us more information. We've learned how to batch replace, which I still caution you to call Hawksoft if you're not comfortable with it, because it can cause mayhem and problems. We've also gone at the policy level over application type, line of business, and policy office. So again, next week we'll keep moving on. I think that gives you a lot to look at here over the next 7 days. and hopefully you can come back a little bit more cleaner than when we started. Does anybody have any last minute questions before we're done today?
Stephen, I think that Erica had asked me, is there, and I think maybe you're going to be covering this next week, so just let me know. It says, is there a way to convert all carriers back to Accord policy titles at once versus going into each carrier with each line of business within each state? And I feel like that kind of comes back to your company setup. Do you agree with that?
We will review that in policy company setup, but no, you really have to you can, once you fix it, you can copy it to the other state or other line of business, but you have to be really careful that the agent codes are all the same and the producer codes. I mean, it gets really complex. So the simple answer is no. There's no easy way to do that. It's down and dirty, sitting down and fixing it once and for all, and then closing it out so people can't add new ones, or that you're setting the defaults and not letting them pick whatever it is they want. But it is a one section by each carrier by each state process.
Yay, huh?
Yay!
Yay, yeah, I know. Terry wanted to know, how would you handle if a producer handles an endorsement which is paid commission and the agent one is different than the producer?
I mean, you could, so I'm sorry, if the agent one is paid commission and the producer is different?
So if producer handles an endorsement which is paid commission and the agent one is different than the producer. So I'm thinking the producer on the client level. Again,
that's going to depend on how you default your commission setup. If you're defining it all by agent, then the agent's going to be paid on it. If you're defining it by producer, the producer's going to be paid on it. I mean, in the commission reporting, it'll give you different variables, but you really need to try to stick to one, so you're not paying commission to like 3 different people for having their name in 3 different places. I would think that if you're paying commission on an endorsement, I don't know, that would be an agency preference. I mean, I guess I haven't thought of it because we don't pay commission on endorsements. We pay it on new business and on renewal, but not on endorsements. So I guess if somebody's processing a change, I mean, I think it would still kind of even out in the long run versus each one individually, but I don't have an answer for that.
Okay. Somebody asked, should we be doing this every month? Which I was going to ask you, how often do you do this?
Every month is a great way to do it. I actually try to go in every couple of weeks and just check, like I check certain things every week because we have a staff meeting every week. And if I'm seeing something fall backwards, I want to be on top of it. But the general cleanup or the heavy duty stuff, I do once a month. I check for like producer, agent, source, those kinds of things weekly, because I can bring it up at the staff meeting over, and I'm the broken record that every time they're like, I know, you always tell us this. And I'm like, I know, but you never fix it. So, I mean, it's the broken record. And now they're tired of hearing it after a couple of months. And they're like, it's gotten from where it was 20 a week to now it's 1 or 2. So it's getting much better.
Well, most of what we have left is just lots of thank you, Stephen. Thank you so much. And, you know, great presentation. And somebody said, I'm excited to try all the tips. I'm a little afraid of what I will find.
Yeah, don't be afraid.
And I think that's normal, right?
Right. I mean, literally just pick one. If all you're going to do this week is pick one and look at it and see if it's right or not and fix it, it's better than doing none. One's better than none. So. And
it's a process, you know, over time, you know, the very first time you go through and fix everything, it may take longer.
Right.
Is what I found. And then as you start to implement a weekly or a monthly cleanup, it's very minimal.
Absolutely. It is much easier to do. So there's nothing worse than follow-up that never happened. Block time weekly to review and maintain your data. Utilize the memorized reports and assign the saved reports so others can help. And some progress is better than no progress is where we're going to leave it at today.
Great. And somebody wanted to know, yeah, it sure is. And somebody wanted to know where can we find the recording of this? So I will email all of you a link to the recording along with a link to the database cleanup guide. And it usually, sometimes it takes 3 or 4 hours for a long webinar to process before I get it. So I usually will get it to you within 24 hours as soon as I have it available. And once we have all 3 of these recorded, I think we will also post it on our website. But for now, we will email it to you directly within 24 hours. And I think that's it. And we're even ending on time, Stephen.
Look at that.
Look at that. That's
1
awesome.
minute over.
So we will, again, so this is going to take place again next week at the same time, same place. I will send you all a 24-hour email notification and then an hour notification so that you don't have to store that joining information everywhere. And go ahead and go out there and try the cleanup. Give it a try. Be brave. And, and come back with some more questions.
Do a backup and be brave.
Yep. When nobody else is working in the system, right?
Right. And call Hawksoft. They will walk you through a lot of this as well. That's what they're there for, is to help guide you and assist you. So if you get stuck, give Hawksoft support a call. Great.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And thank you, Stephen,
guys,
for all your information and expertise. We will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.